Hello and welcome to Josella Pearl. If you are new to our channel, we welcome you and we say a big thank you to all our subscribers. Thank you so much for sticking with us. In today's video, I'm going to teach you how I made this very beautiful A-line dress for a 4 to 5 year old child. This dress has a zipper at the back for easy opening, and also it has a cap sleeves and a beautiful patch pocket with ruffles in front. It's very simple and very easy to follow through. So if you are interested in this video, then let's get started. So to make this dress, I got these two beautiful fabrics. These are cotton fabrics. One is printed and one is plain. I'll be matching them to form this dress. This is about 1.5 yards of each of the fabric, but I'll be using way less than 1.5 to make this dress. So I'm going to go ahead and then cut it out, then we will start making this dress. So I have two pieces of fabric here, a longer one and then a shorter one. I'll be cutting out both the front and back in designing this dress. So the shorter one is 14 inches in width and then 6 inches in length, and then the longer one is 16 inches in width and also 6 inches in length. So I'm going to go ahead and then fold them into two, but before that I'm going to mark out the wrong sides of this fabric so I don't get confused later on. So I'll mark out the wrong side for both the short one and then the longer one, then I'll fold them into two. So I folded both fabrics and I'll put the shorter one on top of the longer one this way. The longer one is going to serve as the pattern I'm going to be using for the back pieces, and then the shorter one will be for the front. So these are the folded ends towards this direction here, and then I'm going to go ahead and then measure the excess. I have an excess of 1 inch here, which is going to take care of my zipper allowance for the back. So I'm going to go ahead and then input 6 inches from the folded end inside this way and then mark, and also input 6 inches at the bottom and mark it this way. Then I'll connect both points with a straight line. Then the next I'll do is to input 4 inches also from the folded end, mark it, and then go down by 2.5 inches for the neckline for the front. So I'll curve in my neckline this way. And then for the back neck, I'll be doing 1 inch by 4 for the back. It is 4 inches because of the 1 inch extension we have for the zipper allowance. So I'll mark it out. This is going to be my neck for the back. The next I will do is also to drop my shoulder by 1/2 inch, and then I'll connect it to touch my neck this way. Then I would input 2.75 inches from the bottom upward and then draw a reference line across and go in by 1/2 inch, mark, and reconnect to touch my shoulder slope this way. Then the next thing I'm going to do is to curve in my armhole. So I'll go ahead and then cut out the back piece first. So I'll separate the back from the front, and then the next I will do is to cut out the front neck as well. So this is it for the front, and then this is it for the back. I'm going to separate the back pieces. Remember, I'll be placing a zipper at the back, so I'll cut it into two. So after separating the pieces, this is what I have for the back, and then this is it for the front as well. So I'm going to head to my sewing machine and then join the shoulders down, but before I do that, I will just pin them together. So I'll pin the front shoulder to the back shoulder, and then repeat the same process for the other side of the shoulder as well. Then I'll head to my sewing machine and then stitch both shoulders down on 1/2 inch. So after stitching the shoulders down, this is what I have. I went ahead to press it and open up the seam. This is what the right side of the fabric looks like. So the next I'm going to do is to cut out my sleeve. So I'll place this aside and then we'll cut out the sleeve pattern. So for the sleeve, I have here 2 pieces of fabric on fold into 4. The folded side is towards me here. This fabric is 4 inches in length and then about 4.5 inches in width. So I'm going to curve a line from the bottom here. At least I will leave about 1/2 inch away from the bottom, then I'll curve the line to touch the top this way. Then I will go ahead and then cut this slanted line out. So this is what it looks like after cutting. I'll be having 2 pieces, one for each side of the sleeve. So the next I'm going to do is I'll fold in the bottom part this way twice, about 1/4 inch, and then stitch it down on my sewing machine. Repeat the same process for the other sleeve. Fold it in twice and then stitch it down. So after stitching it down, I gave it a good press. This is what they look like. The next I'm going to do is I'll put both sleeves together, make sure they are aligned properly, and then I'll fold them into 2. Then I'm going to create a tiny notch at the midsection of this sleeve, and then I'll open it up again, and I'm going to be forming gathers at the top of this sleeve this way. So I'll mark 2 inches away from the notch on each side of the sleeve. Repeat the same process for the other sleeve. 2 inches mark away from the notch lines, and then I will head to my sewing machine and then draw gathers from one point of the mark to the other side. So this is what the sleeve looks like. I have drawn the gathers. It's looking so neat and beautiful. This is it for the other sleeve as well. So I'll bring in my bodice, the top part of this dress. I'll place the sleeve on the shoulder of this bodice. So I'm going to place the notched side of the sleeve on top of the shoulder this way, and then pin from one end to the other. And I'll repeat the same pinning process on the other side of this armhole. So remember to match the notch on the sleeve, the notch we created earlier on the midsection of the armhole while you pin. So I'm done pinning the sleeve onto the armhole area. I'm going to run a loose stitch on this sleeve, and then I'll bring in my bias tape and use it to clean the armhole of this dress. So if you want to see a detailed process on how to use the bias tape to clean the armhole and then the neckline area of this dress, kindly let me know in the comment section. So after stitching the bias tape around the neckline and the armhole, this is what I have. This is what it looks like. This is the wrong side of the bodice, looking so neat and so beautiful. Remember to give it a press on the ironing table. And then the next I'm going to do is I'll measure the bottom part of this yoke, or the top part of this dress. I have 12 inches here. I'll take note of that because I will need this when I'm drafting the bottom part of this dress. And remember, I have 1 inch zipper allowance at the back of this dress. So let's set it aside and then focus on the bottom part of the dress. So for the bottom part, this is the fabric I'll be using. It's unfold into 2 pieces. The folded area is towards me here. This fabric is 9.5 inches in width and then 24 inches in length. So from the folded end, I'm going to be marking out 6 inches, and then I will connect a straight line from this 6 inch to touch the hem of this dress. Remember, when we measured the yoke of this dress, we had 12 inches, so we are going to divide that 12 inches by 2. That is how come I had 6 inches for the bottom part of this dress, and this is unfold, hence the 6 inch mark. So I'm going to draw a straight line to touch the hem of this dress, and then I'll cut it out. So this is going to be the piece for the front, so I'll be using this to cut out the back piece as well. So this is what it looks like. I'm going to fold it back, and then I'll use it to cut out the back pieces of this dress. So this is the back piece. It is also 24 inches in length and then 10.5 inches in width. So for the back, remember we have 1 inch seam allowance for the back. So I'm going to input the 1 inch zipper allowance on the folded area of this fabric, mark it from the top to the hem of this dress, and then I will connect a straight line to join the points together. So the folded end is towards here and the pieces are here as well. So the next I will do is to bring in my front pattern and then place it on top of this fabric I have here. I'm placing it away from the 1 inch zipper allowance we created on this fabric. So arrange it neatly on this fabric, and then I'll go ahead and then cut out the sides of this dress. So I'm done cutting out the back. I'll go ahead and then cut out the back pattern into 2, one for each side of this dress, because we'll be adding a zipper to the back. So we'll separate the back fabric into 2. So we are done with the cutting process. I have 2 pieces for the back. These are the pieces for the back, one for each side, and then this is the piece for the front. So let's go ahead and then cut out our pocket. So the first thing I'm going to do for the pocket is I'm going to go down by 8.5 inches from the top and then mark it this way, and then from the sides I'm going to go in by 3 inches and then mark as well. So this is where I'm going to be placing my pocket on the front of this dress. So I have a very tiny piece of fabric here I'll be using to create this beautiful patch pocket. This fabric is 5 inches in length and then 4 inches in width. So I'll go ahead and then fold this fabric into 2. Then I would create a curved line at the bottom of this fabric to shape the pocket. So I'll trim off this curved line. I'll fold the top part of this pocket into 2, about 1/4 inch twice, and then stitch it down on the sewing machine. And for the sides of this pocket, I'll just fold in about 1/4 inch all round and then just give it a good press on the ironing table. And for the ruffles on this pocket, I have a long strip of fabric here. This piece of fabric is 3 inches in width and then 28 inches in length. So I'll go ahead and then fold this fabric into two and then stitch the sides down on 1/4 inch. Then when I'm done stitching it down, I will draw gathers on top of this piece of fabric. So this is what the pocket looks like on the wrong side. I just folded the sides down and then gave it a good press, and then I'll place it at the points that we marked on the front part of this dress where we'll be placing the pocket. And I also have here my ruffles I created. So I'm going to be placing the ruffle beneath the pocket, and then I will pin it from the sides. So I'll pin these ruffles from one side of this pocket to the other side. So when you are pinning this, kindly take your time so that the ruffles can come out well, and then it will sit pretty on this dress. The next I'll do is to head to my sewing machine and then stitch it down on 1/4 inch, very close to the tip of the sides of the pocket. So I'm done stitching the ruffles down on the pocket. This pocket is looking so beautiful and can hold a few candies for this child. So the next I'm going to do is to stitch the yoke onto the bottom of this dress. So I'll turn it right sides facing the right side of the dress and then pin the sides down. Then I'll also bring in the back pieces of this dress and then pin them onto the yoke of the dress. Then I'll head to my sewing machine and then stitch them down on 1/2 inch. So I've stitched the yoke onto the bottom of this dress. This is what the back looks like. It's looking very neat and pretty already. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my matching zipper. So I'm going to be fixing this zipper onto the zipper allowance area we left at the back of this dress, and I'll close up the center back to about 1 inch above the zipper, and then I'll fix this zipper in place. If you want to see a detailed tutorial on how to fix a zipper, kindly let me know in the comment section. So after stitching the zipper, I'm going to go down by 1/2 inch from the hem of this dress and then mark on both sides of the dress, and then I will bring in my curved ruler and then draw a slant line to touch the hem of this dress on both sides of the dress. Then I would cut this out. I don't want a sharp point on the hem of this dress, and I also want the hem to look very beautiful. That is why I'm doing this. So I'll trim it off. When I'm done trimming off, I'll head to my sewing machine and then stitch the sides together on 1/2 inch. So I repeat the same process for the other side of this dress, and then I'm going to fold in the hem of this dress by 1/4 inch twice and then finish off the hem. So I'm done stitching this dress. The dress is complete, looking so gorgeous, so beautiful. The ruffle pocket is so pretty. The dress is looking so nice. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial and you give this video a thumbs up. This is what the back looks like. The zipper is looking so neat. I want to hear from you if you want me to show you how I fixed a zipper onto my dress. Thank you so much for making time to watch this video. We hope this video was helpful and you give it a try. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share this video. We'll see you in our next tutorial.